20,000 runners participating in the Walt Disney World Half Marathon. To be honest, I am a bit nervous. While I have been training all year, I haven't run a race that long since 1980, when I was only 16 years old, when I ran a full 26.2-mile marathon in Miami, Florida. Now, I am 54 years old, and one thing I know for sure is that I haven't gotten better with age. But despite my reservations, I am still eager for this opportunity to run this race, to see if I can still run 13.1 miles, and to share this experience with Allison and Bandy. As we gather on this All Saints Sunday, 2017, I want to remind you that we are all in the midst of a race of faith. It's not one that lasts 13.1 miles. It's one that lasts a lifetime. It's not one that's limited to 20,000 participants. It's one that is open to each and every follower of Jesus Christ. It is a race we entered at the time of our baptisms. And I believe that we can benefit from some advice as to how to faithfully run this race. And so, let us turn to the 12th chapter of Hebrews, where the author offers us some insight as to how we might run this race. This morning, I would like to highlight three things. First, the author instructs us, let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us. We are to run this race with perseverance, with patient endurance, and for good reason. This race of faith is not an easy one. It is not a simple sprint. It is a true endurance event. And consequently, perseverance is the key. As I think back to the longer races that I have run over the years, I recall that in the midst of them, I experienced both peaks and valleys. There were times when the running was easy and the miles seemed to pass by so quickly. However, there were other times when the running was painful, and I wondered whether I would make it to the next mile marker. The same holds true for our race of faith. No doubt, our lives and our lives of faith contain both peaks and valleys. There are times when life is good, our faith is rock solid, and God seems so close. Conversely, there are other times when life is challenging, our faith is shaky, and God seems absent. It is for those latter times that the author of Hebrews writes these words to exhort us to hang in there, to keep on running. And while it is one thing to encourage us to persevere, to stick with it, no matter what, it is quite another to equip us with the means to do that. thankfully, that is precisely what the author of Hebrews does for us. And that leads me to my next point. Our second lesson begins with these words. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us run with perseverance. From the many races I have run over the years, what helps inspire me is when spectators are gathered on either side of the race route, cheering us on, encouraging us to keep running. But for me, the greatest inspiration always happens when I approach the finish line, when I see fellow runners, those who have already completed the race, but those who have come back to encourage those still out on the course. I especially look to them for support because they know precisely what I'm going through. In the 11th chapter of Hebrews, the author lists the names of some saints found in this great cloud of witnesses. People such as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Moses, Samuel, and David. A veritable who's who of faithful believers. He shares these names and their stories to remind us that there are others who know what we are going through. That there are others who have persevered and have faithfully completed their races of faith. But it is not simply the giants of the faith who have done this. As we celebrate this All Saints Sunday, we are reminded of our own cloud of witnesses. Those that we have known personally, who have also completed their race of faith. A spouse or a parent, a friend or a church member, including those names that we will read in just a few minutes. And as Christians still out on the course, we are not only surrounded by those who have gone before us, we are also surrounded by those who continue to run alongside of us. As I think about this half marathon, I am thankful that I will be running with Allison and Mandy. For I know that they will be there to encourage me if I grow weary, helping me to make it to the finish line. The same is true in the race of faith. By being part of this community of believers, we know that we are there to strengthen others when their faith begins to wane. We know that we are there to encourage each other until we reach the finish line. And while we draw great comfort from this cloud of witnesses, both past and present, there is one other word of encouragement that the author of Hebrews shares with us. Let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. Look to Jesus. That is the definitive word that the author shares with us. I think that we can do this in two very practical ways. First, we can look back to Jesus, who gives us the perfect example of what it is to run the race with perseverance. A race that led him into the desert to be tempted by Satan. A race that constantly had him at odds with the religious establishment. A race that led him to Golgotha, where he endured shame, suffering, and death. The author of Hebrews encourages us. Consider him who endured such hostility against sinners, so that you may not grow weary or lose heart. When we get tired or discouraged in the midst of our race, we should remember Jesus, knowing that nothing we face compares to what he has endured for us. And second, we can look ahead to Jesus. For he has promised us that when we reach the finish line, he has something prepared for us that will make it all worthwhile. For those who finish the Walt Disney World Half Marathon, awaiting them at the finish line will be a wonderful commemorative medal. For those of us who finish the race of faith, awaiting all of us will be something far greater. The Apostle Paul writes, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith. From now on, there is reserved for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give me on that day. And not only to me, but also to all who have longed for his appearing. At the end of our race of faith, we will receive a crown of glory from Jesus himself. We will be forever in his presence. And we will be reunited with all those who have already completed their races, joining together in a celebration that will never end. Knowing the joy that awaits us, let us continue to run our races of faith, looking to Jesus, the one who gives us the strength to persevere, and the one who will be there to greet us when we reach that finish line. Amen.